Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to another edition, and this probably is not just another edition, it is the ultimate one, the one that wraps up the first season of our Scars to Stars. Scars to Stars, as you know, is that program that looks at the woman and her history and looks at her success, looking at her journey. We call it Scars to Stars, and we have called it Scars to Stars because most women go through things nobody else knows about. But women have a way of overcoming challenges, and you only see them after they have gone through. So today we have the privilege of interviewing one of our foremost bankers, one of our foremost leaders. I've been privileged to have known her from a very early age. When she started out, she was my branch manager in Standard Chartered Bank, but today she has overcome every other seat and she's sitting at the top. She heads the biggest bank in Zambia today. She's the first female managing director of that bank. She has been first female for a long time. She was first female in NatSafe, she was first female in Access Bank, and today she's the first female in Zanaco. Zanaco is the biggest bank, and we have Mukwandi Chibesa-Kunda with us today, and we want to see how has she been. Mukwandi, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Pastor, and thank you, viewers. It's an honor and a privilege to have joined this show.
It's been 20 years in banking. How's that been for you? It came so fast.
It came so fast because of clients such as yourself.
Okay.
At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Banking is about people. It starts with the customer, and it's also about the staff that you deal with. And we're grateful to people like you who have egged us on and created the success that we have seen. So thank you for banking with us at that time. We're looking forward to banking all of you at Zanaco.
We're already in Zanaco, so
oh, good.
We're part of your, let me use the term, we're part of your congregation.
Right, wonderful, wonderful.
You know? But one thing that stood out with you even then, and 1998-99, was your person, people's skills. You took care of people. You were so into, you gave personal attention to people. Everybody was easy to come to your office, and you always had a smile and had time. How have you kept that?
I think it's easy when you understand that at the end of the day, we're all just human beings, trying to get somewhere. And when you keep that perspective, it's then not so difficult to engage everyone around you, whether it's a customer or a member of your team or even a member of the family. I try very hard to keep that balance, and it also then gives you perspective in terms of who we are, because you can get into the title space and forget that at the end of the day we're all just human beings.
So that's
and it's
brilliant.
important to just keep that going.
So you want to look at everybody, you put a 10 on everybody. That's a human being.
That's a human being.
Treat them as you would want to be treated.
Exactly.
You are a chief executive, so you're a professional, a very seasoned professional, because you have such experience. And personally, I don't know of somebody, a woman in the banking area, there are many in banking, but have gone to head different organizations, and it's like you've gone from peak to peak. Bigger peaks, bigger, reading through your bio and your journey, you have always set missions to achieve, and you have gone into bigger spaces. You're also a wife, you have a beautiful family, you're a daughter, and we want to look at, in the next hour, how has this woman evolved?
Right.
What challenges has she faced? What has made her who she is? What has determined her values? What informs why she is who she is? So I'd like to start with that. Who is Mukwandi? And don't start from the boardroom. Can we start from where it started?
My
from?
childhood.
Who is she? Yes, please.
I'm a daughter of Francis Walusiku and Teresa Kamatumwa. I was raised on a farm, and we were 6 girls.
Okay.
My father was pining for a son, and we all knew that.
Did he get one?
He got one. Unfortunately, he passed away.
What's that?
But the 6 girls, eventually, he actually sat us down.
Okay.
And he said, "You're all I have. Make it work."
Awesome.
And what we then had to do on the farm, he gave us each a piece of land, and we had to till the land, and we had to grow something. It's not that that was the only source of income, because he was quite distinguished himself. But I think that taught us a particular set of values, that a lot of the time you have to put in the effort to get something out. We have to be intentional and deliberate to be able to achieve that success. In some instances, people achieve success anyway without necessarily trying, but more often than not, you have to put in the work. But beyond just putting in the work, anyone can do it. I'm just an ordinary person. I started out on this farm in McKinney, and over the years, my initial leadership, when I was given the role of head girl at my school, I started out at Lusaka Girls, and then at Roma Girls, I was given the role of head girl. I was more surprised than anyone.
Really?
When I was given that leadership position.
But they
saw a quality in me that even I did not necessarily acknowledge at that time. But beyond that, I believe that there is leadership in everyone. And it's about bringing it out. And having come through the years in the various organizations that I've worked in, I have very, very clearly come to understand that part of leadership is also about holding someone else's hand. There are certain people who held my hand through to get me to where I am today. And it's my responsibility to hold someone else's hand to get them to where they can potentially be. Along the way, as you're saying, there are scars.
Yeah.
It's not a smooth ride to success. However, at every point, if you persevere, if you are diligent, if you just keep your eye on the ball, I actually do believe anyone can.
Anyone can. So you came through your allotment. You had a place you had to wake up every morning, and you went to work on the farm. You milked cows. What did that teach you? What did that bring into your life when you started that early, and your father and your mom made sure you had those chores, if you might call them chores? Yeah. Did that do anything for you?
Yes, it did. And the milking cows is what I hated the most.
Okay.
I didn't do it often, but the few times that I did, part of the challenge was making sure you didn't get kicked in the process.
Okay.
And that meant that you had to have a plan. And I think those are the kinds of things that teach you something. We had to also clean chickens. For 2 years, I did not eat chicken because that smell.
Yeah.
It can get to you if you're cleaning chickens every day. So farm work is not easy. I actually decided that I would never live on a farm.
Oh, really?
But now that I'm older, I think I appreciate more. And I'm thinking, okay, my children may not have benefited the way they should have.
Okay.
Maybe we should have considered living on a farm. But at the time, it felt like punishment, honestly speaking. But it instilled certain values in who we are today, myself and my sisters.
Really?
And beyond that, I got married to a very understanding husband, Chita Chwesafunda. We have 4 children, Chushi, Lombe, Liswani, and Kwani, who's named for me.
Okay.
And what we have tried to also do, myself and my husband, is to try and see if we can pass on some of this to our children, and alongside that, my sisters as well. So I think something was planted in us. At that time, we didn't appreciate it. And I would like to just encourage any young girl out there, or even any young woman, that whatever it is that you're going through, it may feel like a punishment today that you have to work so hard, but hard work always pays off. Always, always does. I actually strongly believe that today.
So you went to, from there you went to, just following your leadership timeline, you went to Lusaka Girls, and you went to Roma Girls.
Yes.
I've had a lot of Roma Girls talk. By the way, it is interesting to note that the Chita Sekunda family has given us 2 CEOs of banks at the same time in Zambia. Do you know of any other family that is doing that?
To be honest,
2 female.
I don't know of any, but I think beyond that, it's a privilege for us to be in this position. It's not something we take lightly. It's a blessing. We are inspired by what we achieve and jointly motivate one another to achieve more. And that's why I believe in planting a seed in somebody else, because I do believe that actually we can share the capacity to keep growing. You know, there's that saying, ask someone about their friends and I'll tell you who they are.
They are.
So a lot of the time, the people that are around us also help to define us. So if we're all striving together, I believe that we can all achieve together. And looking at Zambia as a country, I think we have much more potential than we even acknowledge.
Okay.
And I think, as you're saying, Roma girls also instilled certain values in me. I'm very Catholic, very Christian, very grounded in that. And I believe that has also played a significant role in my achieving what I have achieved since then.
What was it like leading, being the head girl? You are the head, you came through Roma girls. A lot of the Roma girls we've talked about the values and the sisters and the chores and the discipline. And you had the added responsibility of being the head girl. What did that do for you? How did that shape your character?
I think what I realized being head girl at the time, upon reflection, is that it's actually possible to be part of a team and lead it.
Okay.
Because until that time, I always thought of myself as just part of a bigger group.
Okay.
But when they picked me out to lead the rest of the team, I wondered how I would manage it because I had friends amongst the team.
Okay.
And that then meant that I had to balance leading with relationships. And that has helped me over the years to also manage that. And there is always that balance that we deal with of leading with making sure that the relationships are there. It helped me to deal with transparency because if you're credible and transparent, everybody knows exactly where they are, and therefore it's that much easier. If you don't tell people the truth as to where they are, then it becomes more difficult to manage and inspire. So leadership is a gift, feedback is a gift, and being deliberate about achieving is also a gift. And I think that was first ingrained through the sisters that taught me through, and thereafter I have had so many leaders that I look up to and who carried me along the way, even in terms of my working career. I would actually also be guided by the kind of leader I don't want to be. Because a lot of people talk about the kind of leader they would like to be, but there's also a type of leader you don't want to be.
Yes.
And it also defines which way you go on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes you catch yourself. We're not perfect. You catch yourself and you say, no, I don't want to be like that. And you correct yourself, just so that at each point you're going in the right direction. And if you think that you're going in the wrong direction, you have an opportunity to step back.
So leadership, a lot of leadership is self-regulation, self-reflection, self-awareness, and self-regulation.
Absolutely.
So you catch yourself, you reflect and you ask yourself, and then you regulate.
Yes.
So that, does that come as a leader or does that come because I'm a woman?
It's both. I think our society plays a big role in how women lead, and over the years we have come a long way. We stand on the shoulders of great women who have gone before us, who broke the barriers that were there. So things are a lot better for the woman today, but things are still quite difficult. We often have to work twice as hard to get the same recognition.
That's right.
And a lot of the time we get the negative feedback before we get the positive feedback. And even sometimes in the boardroom, as you're having a conversation, you'll find that if a woman says something, people will not listen. And if a man repeats the same thing, it seems to land a little bit better. And so you just observe small things like that and you try to bring out, okay, what were you saying? You know, when you can. But things are also moving very quickly. So much as we try to raise each other up as women, we also need to recognize that we're not the only ones in society. They're also men. We have boy children who also need to be given that place. We have brothers, we have fathers. So there is a balance. We're 50-50.
So a woman in leadership from this, and it's a thread that I hear in quite a number of the women we've talked about. Women in leadership are quite empathetic and they seek partnerships and collaborations. They understand that they are not the only ones in the room, and they seek to collaborate and to celebrate other people's uniquenesses, bringing that. Has that been your experience in your leadership journey?
Yes, and that's what oftentimes women bring to the table. Diversity and inclusion is about taking a view from someone other than the one who usually speaks.
Yeah.
And that is what women often bring to the table. Because we have experienced it, we often listen more. But it's not always true, again, you know. So it's never one size fits all.
Okay.
But there is a lot more empathy from women leaders than from other leaders. And I think over time, as the society is much more balanced, we are listened to more, even by our menfolk. I mean, if I look at my career progression, the people who helped me through were not all women. There were also men who saw the potential in me and said, she can do this, and gave me that opportunity.
Brilliant.
So I think what we also need to do is to acknowledge that everyone plays a role. It takes a family to bring up a child. It's not just the mother. But the mother often plays a significant role.
Yeah. And what role has education? What would you say? You didn't set out to be a banker. You wanted to be an architect. Your father wanted you to be a lawyer. You ended up being a banker, and you feel this is your place.
Right.
Tell us about that and your educational life. How has that contributed to who you are today?
I went to UNZA, and my father just said to me, just study law, then you can make a lot of money on your own. And I opted to study economics. And it was close to what he did, funny enough, because he had studied statistics. And he then said, okay, maybe, let's see what happens. And when he passed away, I was already working in a bank. And he actually said to me, you're not too bad as a banker. So I think he's okay with it. Okay. A lot of the time, what also happens is that we prescribe to children who they should be. And we're also guilty of it, myself and my husband, because my boys have always wanted to be something else. We don't want to do this, we don't want to do that. So it happens that way.
Is it a blessing that your parents had 6 girls, now you have 4 boys?
I have 3 boys and a girl.
3 boys. Oh, there's a girl.
There's a girl. My last board is a girl. Okay. But we have a lot of boys in the family, my sisters and I.
Okay.
And I think my father was so excited when I had my son.
Brilliant.
He went because he had this cattle, this breed of cattle, and he came and he said, this one is his. This one is his. Actually, it took him there to when he was a baby. He was very, very excited about that. So I think what that did for him was, it was very clear that still he had children. He had children. Yeah. His children had children. And so his name carries on. Fantastic. And we still talk about him. In fact, we were talking with my sisters just the other day about how his legacy needs to be enhanced, because he did play quite a role in Zambian history. But beyond that, I think everyone has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And if we can find a way to support people in telling their story, I think we'll all be better for it.
You've gone on to be first in different banks, and you have climbed over 20 years. I wonder whether 20 years is the set time to say you want to be a CEO, take 20 years. Now, you have gone on to do that. As a woman, what challenges have you faced? Because at that time, we're talking about First NatSave, wholly owned Zambian bank, First Access, new bank in the block. And Access has a very engendered policy to be celebrated. And then you're first female MD of Zanaco, Zambia's biggest bank. What challenges have you faced as a woman, climbing up the ladder and emerging to become those things at the different peaks you have gone through?
I think the biggest challenge oftentimes that we as women face is self-doubt.
Okay.
So when I look back on my career and the points at which I stumbled, a lot of that was actually more about me than about the people around me, and whether or not I was presenting myself the way I should have.
Okay.
And I think that's been my biggest challenge. When you doubt yourself, oftentimes other people will doubt you. And so when you allow yourself to thrive, then other people will believe in you. And so there is that big challenge, you know. It's called the imposter syndrome. Should I be here? You know? And if I am here, how do I make sure that I'm delivering to expectation? And it's more common in women than in men. It's something that can only change as we keep achieving. Because as we surprise ourselves, oh, I've done that. Okay, so it's fine. And then I've done this, and then I've done that. But it also eggs us on to try harder and work harder and keep proving ourselves over and over again. I don't think it should take 20 years. And when I look back, actually, it didn't take 20 years even for me.
Okay.
For me to have my first CEO role.
No, much earlier.
It was much earlier.
Yes.
So I would encourage everyone to try and shorten the time frame, but it's okay if it's longer. You know, we're all different.
That's
so
right.
one person will make something happen in 20 years, another in 10, another in 5, another in 30. We're all different. And the pressure that we put on each other by defining a time frame, by defining what needs to happen first and then next, is that then people begin to doubt themselves and say, but how come I'm not there? So I think everyone has their own pace.
We must know ourselves.
We must know ourselves, be self-aware, be deliberate, be intentional, and just try our best. That's all we can do.
You have gone on to do these things, and something you just said to us is self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Where does it come from for women? Because you advertise, and you advertise for manager, loads of women, advertise for secretary, a huge crowd of women, advertise for managing director, sometimes no woman at all. Where does that doubt come from? How is the doubt more than women? A lot of times women are in leadership positions, but that same doubt, they don't make decisions. And they make people feel like we can, but most likely it is this doubt, self-doubt. Where do you think it comes from? And how does a woman, I don't know if you've ever looked at that as an issue, and how does a woman listening deal with doubt?
I think it's the way we've been socialized. So, for example, if you looked at a picture of a CEO,
Always a man.
more often than not. And if you look at a picture of a boardroom,
All men.
and so when you
Mostly.
find yourself being the only one in the room, you start wondering, okay, what does this mean? And it takes a while to realize that it's fine. It's okay. The roles can be different. But it takes a while because that's how we've been socialized from the time that we were children. It's very difficult to unlearn what you have learned, and you may not even be doing it consciously. But once you know about it, then you can do something about it and realize, okay, this is where I'm exhibiting this is what I can do about it.
So this is important for women, therefore, to recognize. You said being a leader is a gift. And I guess when you define it as a gift, it means that the person appreciating the gift realizes it's a responsibility as well. Because it's a gift, it's a responsibility. It means that for you women that are in leadership, it is a responsibility to change the narrative.
Yes.
So that the next time a girl is looking at leadership, she's seen the face
Of another woman.
of a woman.
And to change that narrative and to actually deliver on that means you have to succeed.
You have to succeed.
So it's not just yourself, it's not just about you. It's about all those other young ladies coming behind you, because if you fail, then the next time they're considering, they'll say, but that woman failed.
Yes.
But they never talk about a man who failed.
Yes.
They'll talk about that woman failed.
That's right.
And that's why we celebrate women. And I think people are tired of it. But we shouldn't get tired of trying to raise up 50% of our population. Because that's the only way in which this will change.
That's
we
right.
need to be very conscious about it.
And intentional.
And intentional. And change the narrative. It can't be changed by only one group. It can't be changed by only a few people. It has to be all of us recognizing that this is where we as a society play a role, and this is what we can do about it.
So it takes a woman to create space for other women. It takes a woman to change the stereotype, the narrative that women are good, they can do it. And the more we stand as role models, the more women come into leadership positions and spaces.
That's right. It takes a woman and a man. I said earlier that there are some men that held our hand. I mean, you're doing this show.
Yes.
You're a man who is holding women's hands to tell the story. Because by telling that story, you just don't know who will inspire.
That's right.
So I acknowledge completely that it's not just about a woman inspiring another woman. It's about a woman and a man holding the hand of a woman. But everyone needs to be a bit more empathetic to why it is that we do this.
Okay.
Because once everyone understands why, then perhaps it'll be easier for the next generation.
And I watched your video, your Zanako video, celebrating women at the end of the Women's Month. And you talked about leadership challenge, and you talked about Zanako. Mm-hmm. You are now head of Zanako. What is your leadership challenge in bringing about gender equality, in bringing about the empowerment of women? You talked about other people have held your hands and created space for you. Mm-hmm. What is your leadership challenge as the head of Zanako in achieving equality in a COVID world?
Thank you for asking that question, because I really do believe that it's a critical piece. Part of what I shared in that leadership challenge was, what is it that each of us aspires to? What is it that we are inspired by? Because different people, as I said, have different challenges, a different vision for themselves. How do we bring all that together? In this institution called Zanako, how do we align the purpose of each of the members of staff to identify where they fit into the wider story of Zanako? When you look at who we are as Zanako and how far we have come, from 1969, this institution has been part of the fabric of the Zambian society. Our people start with our staff and how we show up in the public domain. So when we are looking at who we want to be, how we want to show up, it's not just about us as individuals. It's about us as individuals as well as a team. And who do we want to be? What is our vision for ourselves? And how does it align with our vision for our institution? Okay. So that together we can get there. And that is critically important for me, because that is a way in which we will then achieve what it is that we want to achieve. It can't be achieved by just telling a story. It is achieved by holding each other's hands and saying, okay, let's go on this journey together. And we are inspired to actually go on that journey together. So that's my challenge. That's my leadership challenge to the entire Zanako team.
We did see Zanako has a women's banking strategy. And we did also see that Zanako invested in capacity building for your women in leadership, your managers and your leaders in leadership. And they were very excited to learn. Is there a deliberate policy to build capacity, women capacity, and even in your banking, your female banking? I don't know if you've gone big public on it. What is the vision? What is the strategy? Why do you see women, and why do you want to go that way as a bank to have a strategy to bank women?
There's been a report, actually, funny enough, that the World Bank recently did on women in financial services in terms of their access. What has been observed, even post-COVID-19, is that women have actually been most negatively impacted. Now, if a particular segment of our society is negatively impacted by something more than the other, there has to be a deliberate process to raise them up. And that's why Zanako has put in place measures to raise the women in the institution, to also raise the women in the clientele by putting together products that fit them specifically. And there is actually a business case behind this.
Okay.
Because it has turned out that when they're given that opportunity, women actually do thrive. So there are other products which we may have, which will fit our menfolk, and there are other products which fit our womenfolk. And what we are able to then do is to segment the market and say, this works for this one. How do we bring that out? It's just like in a family. When you identify children, you say this one needs this and the other needs that. It doesn't mean you love one more than the other. It just means you're able to assess what each needs for them to thrive and grow. And that's what it's all about. Because as Zanako, we identify that this particular segment requires this. And that's why we have the products we have. We have our village banking products. It's mainly for women, but actually, funny enough, men are also participating in that, which is fine. We're happy. We also have particular loans that are meant for women within the Farmers Check, which is carried out by the Bank of Zambia. We're able to participate in that, and that's exactly where we are, where it comes to gender and dealing the inequalities and inclusion in that space. So there are various areas where we have been able to package products, insurance products for women, particular lending products for women, particular accounts just for women, and it works.
So Zanaco recognizes her customers to be internal and external, and if your women banking does not just look at the external customers, but you look at your internal women, your staff as your clients, and you're investing in them.
Yes, because at the end of the day, how do we serve the community? It's through our people. Mm-hmm. So if we don't start with our people first, then we cannot achieve anything.
And how are you measuring? A lot of studies have been done that shows that organizations with women participation do better economically than when it is less inclusive. What is inclusiveness to you in your leadership? What does inclusiveness stand for? And how are we carrying that to the next level?
For me personally, inclusiveness is not quota-based.
Okay.
It's merit-based.
Okay.
So it's not just giving a woman a job
because she's
a woman. It's about giving a woman a job because she's qualified for it.
Okay.
And on the basis of that, I believe that over time, the field will be level. And what tends to happen is that it's skewed. So for you to level it out, sometimes you have to look for who are the candidates that we can bring out, but they must be qualified.
I was going to say that because we have a lot of qualified women.
Yes.
But it's most of the time a male-dominated space,
yes.
And the internal politics does disservice to the women because they don't play the politics most of the time. So a lot of women that may have merit are not seen because they don't get there to be seen.
That's right.
So you are saying you look for them.
We look for them, but they have to be qualified first.
Yes, yes.
And once we found them, then we give them the opportunity to compete. And if we don't find them, then we leave it.
Okay.
We won't force it until we find somebody who fits the. If we find the ones who qualify them.
The female leader said, "Do not give me a position because I'm a woman, then you insult me. Give me a position because I qualify."
That's right.
So it's the same ethos you stand by.
That's the ethos. And it's something that will then mean that we're not watering down
the quality the standards.
Or the standards. Because people should get things based on merit.
So you are not there for, I'd like to hear your take on that. You are saying affirmative action is good, but I believe in meritocracy.
Yes.
And women therefore should work hard to build capacities and earn the right to be in this space.
That's right. You have summarized it very well. And I don't believe that you should let go of quality because of affirmative action. I believe affirmative action works even with meritocracy.
Okay. Let's look at your leadership. Looking back all the time, different positions, different organizations. What have you learned? What have you learned in leadership? Looking back from where you are now to where you started from over 20 years ago, what are your leadership lessons you take away and you could look back and say, wow, okay, you can now crystallize them as pillars? What would be your
I think
pillars?
one big pillar for me is nothing is ever really a complete disaster or permanent negative. So whatever it is that you go through, as long as you have grit and perseverance, tomorrow is another day. And if you're going through something that is positive, keep going so that you build on every day. If you stand still, you're moving backwards. Always learn and improve yourself in whatever way you can, because then somebody somewhere will notice that this person has this potential. But if you stand still and you become a victim of circumstances, then that is what will happen. So that's something that I've learned through.
It's a big leadership lesson. So you're saying that a woman must have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. And with a growth mindset, comes grit. And grit is something that most executives are talking about today. If you're going to unpack that a bit more, just a bit more, for that young executive wanting to be like Nkwande, how would you interpret grit? How would you interpret, I just termed it, a growth mindset? How would you unpack it for that young girl watching you today that has helped you become who you are? So you've given me the scenario. Can you give me some real life meat?
I think one thing is faith.
Okay.
Carries you through.
Makes you hold on.
Makes you hold on. I think when I look back, just having a sense that there's a greater being, God actually carried me through. My faith has been a very, very strong foundation for me. So I'd encourage, it has kept me going. Okay. Beyond that, I also have a very positive mindset. Okay. So even if something goes wrong, I move on the next day. I don't wallow in yesterday. I look forward to tomorrow. Okay. And beyond that, I recognize that whatever it is that's happening, somebody else has experienced it more often than not. And so if I read about it, I'm more likely to find a solution. So those are the three main ones. I think we underestimate how much learning there is to leadership.
Absolutely.
It doesn't come naturally to most of us. Maybe there's some natural leaders out there. I don't think I am.
But you have to grow.
You have to grow.
Everybody has to grow.
And for you to grow, you have to invest that time and the energy in being able to grow.
Okay. You're the chief executive. You have been for a long time. Or you're a wife and you're a mother. And from, they say pictures say 1,000 words. Yeah. The pictures I see of your family, they speak like 2,000, 3,000 words of a people that, of course, no family is without challenges, but a happy, lovely family. Your husband looks such a gentleman. How do you balance? Are you the CEO at home?
No.
What do you...
I'm a mother and a wife.
Okay.
And I think most importantly, we allow ourselves to be ourselves at home.
Brilliant.
So if you take the office home and you take the home to the office, it's the first confusion that can then destroy both. I try very hard to leave my office self in the office and my home self at home. But I recognize that I'm one person. So whatever happens in one space has an impact on the other. And I try very hard to achieve that balance. Okay. I have said before, there is no such thing as work-life balance.
Totally.
We all just try our best every day. And I think what has worked for us, my husband and I and my family, is just that recognition. But okay, today, mommy has to work. Okay, today, mommy is cooking Sunday lunch. Right? It actually does work when you're all just working together.
So what you have is work-life harmony.
Yes, I suppose that's a nice way to put it. But as you're saying, it's not without its imperfections.
Absolutely.
And all we are doing every day is trying to be better human beings, better people. If every day we just try and do better than yesterday, that's what it's all about.
So, what's your normal day like? How do you balance this? How do you make sure that one is not suffering for the other? We're not talking about work-life balance. We're talking about that man married his wife. He didn't marry a CEO, and he wants his wife.
Yeah.
That beautiful woman he saw, and yes, they've grown together. Those 4 kids want their mom.
Yeah. Funny enough, this morning, as I was going for a breakfast meeting at 7, and my daughter sends me a WhatsApp message saying she's got an art something, and so she sent me that message, and I was now forwarding it to my husband to say, I'm going into this meeting.
Okay.
Please deal this. And I posted it on my status.
Whoa.
On WhatsApp. So I'm in this meeting and I'm seeing all these phone calls and I'm thinking, what has happened today? All these people are calling me. But they were all calling to say, look at your status. You've sent a message that says, Mom, I forgot something for art. So I walk out of that meeting, I called the first person and I said, look at your status, and I checked it. Everyone was laughing, sending me laughing messages. That's what it's all about.
That's the life of an executive.
That's the life. Because I was walking into that thing, I was just sending the message quickly, and it included...
and probably the last page you opened of the thing was your group.
That's it. So a lot of the time, things like that happen, but you take it with humor.
Absolutely.
And you take it with the good intentions that it's meant to do. And importantly, at that point, I was being a mom. I was making sure that what my daughter asked me for happened.
So you were basically tapping into a partnership.
Yes.
That was the intention.
That's
you said,
it.
okay, I can't do this.
I can't do this right now.
I have somebody that can do it.
Who can do it.
Who I trust.
That's it.
And will do
we'll
it
get it
equally
done.
as
And then I
good.
verified after that it was done. And in the process, I looked in other people, which is fine too, because then it definitely was done.
And it gave them a glimpse of your life.
That's right.
How you make things happen.
I was so amazed. They said, oh, there's so many people who care about me.
You see?
Yeah.
So mothers therefore must communicate. Mothers must learn to juggle. Chief executive mothers and wives must learn to juggle, must learn to work in partnership with their spouses to achieve. You can't do everything with your limited time. 24 hours, you're sharing your life. You have to partner to achieve it.
Yes, and I think everyone has to.
Okay.
Not just women chief executives. I think any chief executive has to find a way to find that balance. Anyone working in any institution has to find that balance.
Any leader.
Any leader. And bearing in mind that each of us will start with our own individual leadership. You lead yourself.
Yes.
Even a stay-at-home mom has to find that balance.
That's right.
So I have a lot of respect for everyone. I don't view any particular role in society as being better than another.
Brilliant.
Because everyone is just trying their best in their own realm of what they do. And that's what it's all about.
We all have different races we're running. And each person's challenge is about the same, relatively.
Not necessarily the same, but it's theirs.
Yes. That's
So
why I
we
say
should-
relatively. It's
So we
relative
should
to that person.
not try and judge someone else's race.
That's right.
We should not try and judge someone else's challenge. We should not try and judge someone else's success. We should just accept and celebrate one another for who we are.
Brilliant. You're looking at your life again, looking back 20 years. Somebody wants to come up the ladder, career, particularly in the corporate world. What should that person do? What should that person, a young girl, hearing that it's by merit, hearing that, look, you have to earn it, what should she be focusing on doing? You talked about, I have a positive mind, I've developed my mind. What should I be reading? What does Mkwande read? How did she develop this positive mind? Was she born with it? So that lady is looking at you now. She's probably seen you in the papers, but she's never listened to you talk. Now she's listening to you talk. What are you saying to her? What's her roadmap? What is she looking at?
You know, I have a philosophy: read anything.
Okay.
Because
Just
it will
read.
help you. Just read. Because if I say to you, only read motivational books, and you don't like motivational books, you get bored with them.
That's right.
And you will then miss the opportunity to learn and grow. Start by reading something.
So have the discipline
So have
of
the
reading.
discipline of reading.
Okay.
Once you have the discipline of reading, then you can build on that.
Okay.
But that is the first level of
Okay.
foundation, the discipline. Wake up early. I think we underestimate how much it adds to your day. To just be up by 5, 6 in the morning.
You have been waking up by 5 for a very, very long
I
time.
have been. In fact, if I sleep beyond 10 o'clock, I get a headache. I don't know if it's psychological or it's actually, I don't know why. If I go beyond 10, then I just feel like it's too much.
So even the days you
But
are
I also go to
lazy,
sleep early.
Okay,
I tend
very
to
good.
go
to sleep
to
early.
sleep early. So
you
I
wake
get
up
enough
early.
sleep and then I wake up quite early. But, you know, there's no one size fits all. I have a sister who, she only gets to bed after midnight every day. She only needs 3-4 hours of sleep and she's fine.
Okay.
I have another who wakes up late in the day, and if she has a weekend and there's nothing happening, she will lie in all day and she's fine. And that's why I keep saying, I wouldn't want to be prescriptive as to if you do this, then
different
you'll get
strokes
there.
for different folks.
Different strokes for different folks.
Okay.
What just needs to happen is have a vision for yourself and get out there and identify what will it take and make it happen.
So wake up early, read, have a vision for yourself, take action on your vision, make it happen. And you just gave us a roadmap. So wake up early, read, have a vision, know where you're going, have direction. It's not going to happen until you take action.
Mm-hmm.
Take action, but don't stop till you make it happen. So we can take those 5 steps
Certainly.
from Mukwandi, and it will work in anywhere. Wake up early, have a vision, make sure you read, take action, finish, complete the job. Mukwandi, it's been wonderful being with you. We have done those 5 things. We woke up early. We read about you. We had a vision.
Thank
now
you.
we have done the vision. And we started it an hour ago. Now we've finished it. And we don't think we have finished because we think that there's so much more in Mukwandi. And we hope that you will join us in passing the baton to the next generation. We want to know, how did you do it? And seeing you speak, not in a very doctored interview as it were, in a controlled space, but you being in yourself. We think that the hope of having leaders tomorrow is when leaders today intentionally invest in the young people. We have over 70% of youth, and we need to get them to see that the future of Zambia is in Zambians. And until you add value in that Zambian, we can't add value to Zambia. So we hope that you would accord us that privilege of passing the baton. You have talked a lot about your background, how you started, and how your parents played a role. Even though your father, you could say you came from a privileged place, but he taught you the discipline of work. And you woke up early to farm, you cleaned the chickens, you stopped eating chicken for 2 years, but you learned how to avoid the kicks of the cows. And you did very well growing your space. You went to school, beautiful. Roma girls really has been a revelation to me, and you were privileged to be a head girl there, and it gave you values, and you've gone on to use those values to create the career you have done for yourself. You've shown us you're a very inclusive leader, very empathetic too, and I think your people skills and relational approach has done a lot for you. But you have said where you are is based on merit. You worked hard to be there. You were not there because you're a woman. There were many women, but you were there because they saw something in you. And we saw something in you, that's why we came. So we said thank you, because what we saw you have told us about. And thank you for flying the flag for women, for Zambia. Thank you for your many firsts, and we hope that you'll continue being first in many things. And most importantly, thank you for representing your family. You have a beautiful family, and they can look to you and say, that's my mom, that's my wife, that's my sister, that's my daughter. Your dad is celebrating you in heaven now, and say, that's my girl. Okay, thank you so much, and we hope that you will be again there for us when we call again.
Certainly. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's much appreciated.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to taking the next steps with you.
Fantastic. We celebrate. About. And thank you for flying the flag for women, for Zambia. Thank you for your many firsts, and we hope that you'll continue being first in many things. And most importantly, thank you for representing your family. You have a beautiful family, and they can look to you and say, that's my mom, that's my wife, that's my sister, that's my daughter. Your dad is celebrating you in heaven now, and say, that's my girl. Okay, thank you so much, and we hope that you will be again there for us when we call again.
Certainly. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's much appreciated.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to taking the next steps with you.
Fantastic. We